right? It's systematic.
Because we hear the same argument. What, you're saying that it should be okay to hit women? Nobody should be hitting anybody in the first place. Hit back! You can hit back! You should.
Hey everyone, we're back at it again with more feminists getting absolutely owned. We kicked things off with this feminist who tried to argue against someone who was anti-feminist. He read out all of his quotes and then asked him if he's done enough research to have such opinions on the feminist movement. He clearly didn't know what he was in for because he ends up getting absolutely owned. Let's see how this one played out.
What feminist philosophers and feminist writers have you read that you believe makes you a proper authority, a knowledgeable authority to represent and report on something as complicated as feminism?
Well, unfortunately for you, I've actually read everything, so that's not gonna help you. But I'm not even gonna go there because I don't think you have to read feminist philosophy to see feminism in action, right? It's a political movement. You see.
Here's Milo Yiannopoulos, who owned this feminist. He first explained the current state of feminism and how the movement is not the same as it used to be and that it has become really toxic and steered away from being about equality. But then he also explained his views about BLM and how it's not an effective way of dealing with the difficulty black people are dealing within the country.
Would help. And I think if black people really wanted to improve their lot and improve their situation, they would start voting for Republicans. Because when they do, and when people police properly, black lives are saved. Bill Clinton, who signed the crime bill in which took thousands of black dads out of families and threw them in jail, the terrible, pointless, awful war on drugs, right? Replacing, the black dad with the state, which is what Democrats have systematically tried to do to you guys for generations. And Black Lives Matter's response isn't to say, we're going to try voting for the other guys because 40 years of this hasn't worked. What we want is better schools so that a poor black child who is smart could go to Harvard. They don't do that. They cause a fuss, they block a road, and they burn their own towns down. So yeah, I agree with you that there's a problem, but I think we probably have very, very different prescriptions.
Next, we have a feminist who was talking about helping other people who aren't American natives and saying that America as a country has a lot of resources. What she said make her look ridiculously stupid. She mentions that the country should stop spending over $600 trillion on the military. It's okay to say you don't know, instead of making a fool out of yourself, just look at this.
I think that a bunch of white people came here like 200 years ago and stole land that Native Americans were living on. And there's no reason for us not to let other people come here when we definitely have the land and the resources. And instead of spending like $600 trillion on military, we should give those people medicine and food and water and shelter.
Gaming streamer Ninja, back in the day, said that he would not stream with female streamers because he fears that if there was ever a hint of flirting or anything like that, then people would take it out of context and blow everything completely out of proportion. And he just saw this statement and made a ridiculous claim, like saying that his statement was misogynistic and calling him a misogynist.
Isn't this the guy who said he won't play with women? Cool, cool, cool. Way to go, ESPN. Elevating the status of misogynist. And then for some reason, I missed out on this. She was yelling through her keyboard because she made sure all the words were capitalized. This is delicious. Refusing to play games with women because you are married and don't want hypothetical rumors to start is the most bonkers logic I've ever heard. What is wrong with all of you?
Next up, we have a male feminist, and wow, this guy is just as bad as most of the feminists we've seen in this video. This guy was complaining about some pretty minor things, and complaining how there's a double standard with these things when it comes to men and women. Prepare to cringe.
Things that don't make f***ing sense thanks to the patriarchy. When ladies do not shave their armpits or their legs, and occasionally their upper lip, the male species will say, ugh, gross, that's disgusting. Meanwhile, in Penis Town, we can have literal pubic hair on our face and it's seen as cool, sexy, hip, trendy. Men, check your watches. Most of us are not on Pacific Standard Time. No, we're on f***ing double standard time.
This time, we have a pair of SJWs who were giving praise to a politician. They were asked about what it's like about her, and more specifically, what their favorite decision of hers was that she had made. They were frozen by that question, but what followed after this was pretty funny too. It made them look completely clueless.
She is a pinnacle of women's rights, and honestly, she is such an inspiration, so I really do.
What's one of her favorite decisions of yours?
No, I'm not sure about
I've noticed that because I've seen people with the shirts that have like, you know, the notorious RBG stuff on them. I feel like she's almost an icon within your side of the aisle, but no one seems to know anything that she's ever written an opinion on or.
To know a specific opinion, but I think it's important to know what she what she stands for, and I think you don't need to like.
Wouldn't knowing an opinion be knowing what she stands for?
I don't think you need to. I don't necessarily think you need to.
So you
Next, we have a woman who is against the current feminist movement, and she was busy debunking some myths about the issues feminists claim that exist. One of them includes the gender pay gap. Check this out.
The union, President Obama said that American women are being cheated out of about a quarter of their salary, that they earn only 77 cents for every dollar a man earns. This is a massively discredited factoid. It is simply not true. The 23-cent gender pay gap is simply the difference between the average earnings of all men and women working full-time. It does not take into account differences in occupation, job tenure, hours worked per week. When all of these factors are taken into consideration, the gap narrows to the point of vanishing.
Now we have someone on the show, and he was having a debate with a feminist about how there was a feminist that lied about certain facts, and he came to set the record straight. Check it out.
We have for about 18 months now been presenting prominent feminists with Lying Feminist of the Month awards. And I had the pleasure this morning of being on ITV's This Morning on the sofa with Caroline Criado Perez, who we've presented 2 awards. Well, the first one was she lied about the impact of more women on corporate boards. And
by that you mean that this claim that women on corporate boards improve profits? You don't think that's true?
Well, it's not that I don't think it is. All the evidence says that that is not so. Well, so we challenged her, and she has had no response. All the longitudinal studies that we're aware of show that women do not improve corporate financial performance. It's really clear.
Well, that's interesting, because you'll pick your studies, and those that are in support of the view will pick theirs that actually suggest profitability doesn't.
Next, we have a man who was interviewing someone and asked a few questions about transgenders, and he also said a lot of things about them that offended the woman. One of those things included calling Bruce Jenner a man, and that was the breaking point for the woman.
Transgenders, let me do this. Transgenders now, and they are confused about their identity. So, you heard of Bruce Jenner, right? Mm-hmm. We all know Bruce is a man, but he took off the body part. Where you going?
I'm leaving.
Why are you leaving?
Because.
What?
Because what you're saying is extremely offensive, and I'm not going to sit here for it.
Come and tell me why.
Nope.
You're running?
Yep.
We end things off with Anita Sarkeesian just making a mountain out of a molehill. Here, she's complaining about the character designs in what was then EA's new game Rocket Arena. She complained that they all had athletic body types and that this is sexualizing the female character in the game.
One of the characters has an extremely racist, culturally appropriative design. She's pulling out all of the stops using every buzzword she can to muster 70 likes. It's using a tired old stereotype of a vaguely, quote, magical and vaguely, quote, tribal with the use of face paint and the arrowhead weapon. There's no excuse for this. Who is offended by this? I mean, legitimately, who is offended by this?